What is up, Raider Nation? I am Bigz, aka at BigBonedFFB on Twitter. Welcome to the first episode of Uncovered, the Raiders UnRivaled, the new podcast from the Uncovered series of the Undroppables. This is no fantasy, all just football content, and this is a new show. So, welcome. Settle in, grab yourself an adult beverage, hopefully in a monogrammed glass, and let's talk some Raiders football. I got a special guest who's going to be coming on a little bit later. Let me tell you a little bit about what this show is. Basically, I'm going to be coming at you a couple times a week. I'm going to be giving you Raiders news as it happens. I'm going to be doing a Raiders roundtable every week with some very, very heavy hitters in the nation. And anytime something comes up, I'll hop on live, do a quick live stream. I'll throw some shorts out there for you. So go ahead and hit the like on this video, subscribe, comment, share, hit the bell, do all that stuff. Let's get the algorithm going. Let's watch Undroppables take off. Let's watch this Uncovered series take off. Let's get everything together. I want to give a couple shout outs. First of all, to our Undroppables fearless leader, Chalk, Abe, and Mike Greinberg, who are putting this Uncovered thing together. Dukes and T Seal for all of their graphics and content help. And you guys are absolutely killing it, making me feel very good to be a part of this whole Undroppables team. And hopefully that shows in the work that everybody out here on Undroppables is doing great work. So with that, producer, hit the intro. Let's go. That video makes me want to run through a brick wall. All right. I'm going to reintroduce myself to everybody. My name is Bigz, at BigBonedFFB on Twitter. I'm going to give you a couple stories to get this started. Give you a little bit of background into my Raiders fandom. I was a little boy. My aunt took my brother and I to a donkey basketball game. It was basically a charity event at the local college. It was 49ers versus Raiders. We went and got all these signatures afterwards, like Freddie Solomon and Art Shell, just a whole bunch of football players. And so I started getting my football gears rolling as a youngster. I go to the park the next day with my friends. We're playing football in the park, mud football, basically. Something that we did all the time. It's what I grew up doing. And there was a dude and a lady, and they were over at the picnic tables chatting, and a guy had a football with him. And he comes over and he says, "Hey, you guys want to play with this one?" And we said, "Sure." So he tosses me the ball. We play with it for a while. I go to give it back. He goes, "No, you keep it. I'll meet you back here at 1:00 tomorrow, and you can give me the ball back." I left. Came back the next day, little kid, just eager. Oh, I'm gonna show him. I'm gonna give it to him, and he never showed up. He was never gonna come back. That man's name was Derek Ramsey, and he was the Oakland Raiders tight end. And from that moment forward, I was a Raiders fan. I grew up in Northern California, so I could have gone either way. 49ers and the Raiders were competing in Super Bowls at the time. So whichever way the wind blowing is the way I could have gone. But Derek stepped in, gave a ball to a little kid, and here I am, for better or worse, a Raider fan, part of Raider Nation until I die. Story number 2. Growing up in that same university town, we had a guy come over from the same town I was born in. Jared Goff was born there too, #Nevada boys. And this guy grew up a Raiders fan too. He got recruited, but decided to go to UC Davis on a non-scholarship for a Division II program and absolutely destroyed his conference and division for 4 years. His name was Mike Wise. He came out, got drafted by the Raiders, his favorite team growing up, and I got to watch him play all through college, and we were from the same hometown. So that just cemented my Raider fandom. So I got to watch him back up Howie Long as a defensive end throughout the 80s, and everything was grand. So that's a little bit about me. Go ahead and put something in the comments about how you became a Raider fan, maybe how long you've been a Raider fan. I want the OGs to talk about going to Kezar. I want the OGs to talk about watching Madden, coach them up and everything. So get those comments going. All right. So I'm going to bring on my guest. If you're part of Raiders Twitter, you might have seen him around. He absolutely makes his hay by trolling Charger fans, and some of the funniest and most daggery content that's out there on Twitter, just trying to get under the skin of our hated division rivals. His name is Know the Game. I call him KTG38 among other things. And here we go. What's up, KTG? How you doing?
Hey, fuck the Chargers.
That's quite an introduction.
Yeah, I just got to say it first and foremost. You want me to talk about how I became a Raiders fan? My dad made me a Raiders fan for, like you said, better or worse.
Well, for you, it's for worse.
But, yeah, no, you got to actually witness.
I'm sure he's a great man.
Yeah, whoever he is, I never met him.
So there's a big game tomorrow.
Yeah,
I'm more ambivalent about the Chargers. I'm not really a fuck the Chargers guy. I'm more of a fuck the Chargers fans guy because
me too.
I hate them.
They're
but
annoying.
The Chargers don't really bother me. My grandma's favorite team was the Chargers. My grandpa helped build Jack Murphy Stadium where they played in San Diego. I don't hate the Chargers.
Mm-hmm.
I hate the fucking Kansas City Chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sick of them going to the Super Bowl. I had a wonderful Christmas present to unwrap in 2023 with the Raiders absolutely stomping them on Christmas Day. Team that I hate even remotely as close. And it's, it's a 1A, 1B thing as the Denver Broncos, and then the Cowboys, and then the 49ers. So tomorrow is more of like a rooting for the meteor kind of day.
Oh, yeah. No, have you seen that video going around? I think it's Benchwarmer Braun. He's like, who do we root for in the Super Bowl? And then it shows Raiders fans, and they're like, I just want a meteor. Like, no one has to get hurt. Just destroy the stadium for a delay.
Yeah,
I'd take one for the team on that
one.
Hey,
we can play in Oakland until they build the stadium back up.
There's insurance on the stadium. Fuck it, we can rebuild.
Now, I have a partner on all my podcasts, and his name is Mike Lindbergh at FF Canuck 99. Go ahead and send him some snarky DMs if you can, Raider Nation. But he's a Chiefs fan, and he and I record all the time, multiple times a week, talk to each other all the time. I come on our shows wearing my Raiders gear. He comes on wearing his Chiefs gear. And I got to watch as his team ascended to the Super Bowl. And he sent me a message the other day that was basically like a thank you for letting them use our stadium. And I wanted to punch my phone.
Oh, yeah.
So
I've heard it.
Regardless of who wins, the fact that they're doing it at Allegiant just kind of chaps my hide, if you will. It irks me. It raises my ire. It sticks a burr under my saddle. I'm trying to think of as many old people sayings as I can. But like, there's no joy for me. The 49ers celebrating, the Chiefs celebrating. Like,
The only thing that's cool is that there will be an eventual Super Bowl celebration in our own stadium, which is kind of cool. Like knowing that Max is going to be there and a couple of players, but it should have been us. Should have been us in that. It would have been great. Do it for John Madden kind of thing.
Not that it could have been us, but
Fuck the
yeah,
Colts.
it quote should have
Oh,
should.
with how bad the Ravens played, our defense could have held them. I will
Let
forever be there
let's
in
not
that
get into
mindset.
revisionist history. All right, so we're here to talk Raider news, as this is the opening salvo, the debut episode of the
Mhm,
podcast. We're going to talk about preseason stuff. I mean, it's February. We're Super Bowl bound. We're just out of the Senior Bowl. We've got
mhm,
the combine coming up. We've got the free agency period coming up, and then we've got the draft. So
mhm,
basically, we're going to talk about the structure of the organization at first, because that's all the news that has been happening lately. We'll talk a little bit about free agency and what we see there, and then we'll get into a little bit of pre-draft stuff.
mhm,
Talk about maybe some targets or whatever. That had to do in some of the earlier podcasts that I've been doing, and where we were talking about potential draft targets and things like that. That had a lot to do with the way that the staff was going to work out. And at the
mhm,
time that we started talking about it, Antonio Pierce was not the named head coach. He
mhm,
is now. We didn't have a permanent GM. Tom Telesco is now. They let Bo Hardigree go. Now he's the quarterbacks coach and offensive passing game coordinator in Tennessee.
mhm,
So Tennessee is a little bit of Las Vegas South. They got Bill Callahan, they got his son, and they got Bo Hardigree,
yeah,
who people might have a short memory and not understand that Bo Hardigree led the Raiders offense to a 23 points per game average after he took over for the failed Josh McDaniels
mhm,
regime. Um, so I kind of want kind of wanted to hang on to him.
yeah.
I was kind of damn it. I was kind of sad that he left. I thought he would be more than capable. And now we have Luke Getsy.
I've got
Your
mixed
thoughts?
opinions. My thoughts, it's going to be interesting to see who was the failure in Chicago. And I think that the smartest option at this point, it was either one or the other. Either I want us to get Fields or I want us to get Getsy. I don't think Getsy is actually a bad coordinator. I know maybe the history that he's got doesn't really support the move or anything like that, but at the same time, if you were to pair both of them together, that's a recipe for disaster, as we've seen. And it really doesn't, I don't think his system gets the most out of Fields. So for us to now have the option to see which one, like the NFL is now going to see which one was the fuck up, which I think is cool. We should not get him now. I don't think that that should be the direction we go in. It was for a long time, and I actually would have really supported that idea a lot because I do like Fields. I think he still has a way to go as a passer, but I think you're already getting a dynamic player that can pass just enough to get the job done. And he hasn't had anybody like Devontae Adams. I know DJ Moore is really good, but he hasn't had, Devontae, Mayer, Jacobs, all that. Like he hasn't
We'll,
had the
we'll
consistent guys.
we'll get more into the player personnel stuff a little
Yeah,
bit later. I kind of wanted to focus on Luke Getsy
right.
simply because, um, to be fair, his offensive scheme didn't benefit anybody except for maybe Cole Kmet in fantasy.
Hmm.
Roshan Johnson didn't do him any favors.
No.
Khalil Herbert didn't do him any favors. DJ Moore didn't do him any favors. Justin Fields didn't do him any favors.
Yeah.
Cole Kmet was just a victim, not victim, but just he benefited from circumstance.
Hmm.
Um, I watched I watched quite a lot of film regarding Justin Fields, just because in fantasy that's you do your homework,
Yeah.
and the way that offense functioned was a lot on the coaching staff, and that goes straight to the offensive coordinator. So
Hmm.
I was a little bit disheartened. Not that I really. I really wanted Kingsbury in there. Like, you have these guys who are attached at the hip to quarterbacks
Yeah.
that I'm not a big fan of.
Hmm.
And so like
Or
I
like
talked to
Kyler.
my yeah, I talked myself
Oh,
into Kingsbury after, the uh first day, and then the
yeah.
next day he was out. And
Hmm.
then I started getting hopeful for a couple other guys, and then it's Getsy, who I I'm not well, it remains to be seen.
Hmm.
Hopefully he can work with whoever our quarterback is, and
Which
it'll
I'm going
work
to be
out.
honest, if he's into ascending tight ends and having them play better, we got one that needs to play a little better to kind of live up to his hype. So I'd be fine with that if Mayer
He
starts to
started
pop
getting
up.
his foot and his feet underneath him. And
Yeah.
anybody that watches my podcast, The Fantasy Burn, saw my interview with Kenny King Jr. And Kenny King Jr. basically called Mayer the 2024 breakout player for the Raiders. So,
Oh yeah,
um,
easily.
so look for that. So the way that
Yeah.
the staff is shaken out now, we've got Antonio Pierce is now the full time head coach, which is fantastic. It's something
Love
that
it.
all of us were clamoring for.
Hmm.
We were hashtagging, we were yelling at Golden Knights parade. We were hammering hire Antonio Pierce,
Yes.
and luckily Mark Davis got the message. Patrick Graham, once the reins were taken off him by the failed Josh McDaniels regime, Patrick Graham's defense started to cook, and the Raiders' defense was one of the best in the NFL in the second half.
Hmm.
So I'm hoping to look for more of that in 2024. Now, here's the thing: we're going to talk about free agency in a second, and as I'm going through, most of the major free agents that we have are on the offensive side of the ball, which means that Patrick Graham is going to have his personnel in place moving forward. The
Hmm.
only exception is Isaiah Polamau, who he's not an unrestricted free agent. So they still own
Yeah.
the rights on him, and they'll tender him a contract and everything and bring him back in the building. He's the defensive side of the balls Kenny King Jr. 2024 breakout.
I would love that.
And I love him.
Yeah.
He's cut nephew of Troy Polamalu, nephew of our running backs coach, who's another Polamalu. Cut his teeth at USC. He was
Yeah.
the unheralded safety there.
Hmm.
And I was super into him that draft season. He wound up a UDFA and came over and signed with us, and I
Yeah.
was super excited. And then he's ascended over the last couple of years to the big sack that he got against the Broncos, and that was
Big sack.
fantastic. Such a good guy to root for.
Oh yeah.
Um,
He's a great story, and I'm at this point done trying to evaluate safeties because of how much I was hammering home Tyree Gillespie as like the next big tight end stopper, and he's not even on the team.
Tyree Gillespie, Jonathan Abram,
Yeah,
Merrick hasn't lived up to his draft capital expectations. Um,
I think he has. That could just be me, but I think him and Epps being one of the top safety duos just on average in the league. Like that, there are metrics to show that they were, and he really did have a good season. It was definitely better than the year prior. It was maybe on par or slightly ahead of his rookie season, which was great. But I mean, I've always been into the Merrick pick, and I've always liked it, and I've always thought that he's eventually going to live up to that. But he's also 25, 26, and the safeties play late, so he's still got time.
what I'm talking about more is the counting stats, the jump off the
Oh,
screen type safety play that you see from the guys who are heralded, the Ed Reeds of the world.
oh,
He's not that guy. He works in the system. He covers his ground.
mhm.
He makes the opposing offense think twice before attacking his area.
Yeah,
That's all great. That's not what I'm
yeah,
talking about. I'm
that's
talking about
okay.
the impact player. Um, if you watch Jonathan Abrams' career, he made a little bit more of an impact off the screen than Merrick did,
Mhm.
blowing guys up, things like that. That's Merrick doesn't get a lot of interceptions. He's in the right place most of the time, but he doesn't get a lot of the flashy things that you would expect with somebody who was drafted as high as he was. I'm not saying he's not good. I,
Okay.
I love him. Um, I'm
So
just
you want
saying,
him to
like,
be Antoine Winfield?
yeah, I wanted Antoine Winfield.
Of course. You want like a Javon Holland, which is not everybody can get that. Not everybody has that. But I think of the, if I'm not mistaken, Holland and Winfield were in that same class, right? Or was Winfield the year before?
I don't
Okay, I
remember.
know they were drafted close, but I think Holland of the safeties is the best in that class, and then I think it's Merrick, unless I'm just forgetting somebody. Um, but he's either second or third, depending on if Antoine was in that same class. But regardless, I think he's one of the better safeties that's been drafted recently. Like you can really only think of like Kyle Hamilton, Brian Branch, and a couple of these other guys, Antoine Winfield, that's been drafted recently in that safety position that have really worked out. And I think Merrick is one of them. Isaiah Simmons, one of
The
the,
problem is
yeah,
nobody in the NFL is unattainable. So we could have had him. And that's
of
the
course.
problem when you start talking about players that you dream on. Um,
Right.
so you have to talk about the players that you have. All right.
Mhm.
Now, finishing up with the staff, we hired a general manager.
Yeah.
This is another, God, I hope it works out. I mean, it remains to be seen. Most of the chatter out there is that he is a personnel guy, not
Hmm.
an X's and O's guy. So he built the team in San Diego slash LA that everybody hyped every
Yeah.
year and had nothing to do with the performance on the field. But
Hmm.
in my opinion, the performance on the field is predicated by the players that you have on the roster, the guys that you drafted, the guys that
Right.
you signed in free agency.
Hmm.
And going and getting Khalil Mack and pairing him with Joey Bosa, I have been saying for a couple years since it happened that that's not the kind of thing that's going to work out. I
Hmm.
didn't like Justin Herbert coming out of college. I think that Justin Herbert has always been overrated, and his performance on the field has not borne out his draft status or the hype that surrounds him. Granted, he has a little bit of trouble having a wide receiver core that stays healthy the entire
Yeah.
year. But that's just an excuse. If you can't
Hmm.
win with Joshua Palmer, why are you supposed to be the heir apparent to Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Hall of Fame quarterbacks?
Right.
That's the hype that surrounds him. He had Austin Eckler through Austin Eckler's golden years.
Yeah.
Those days are gone.
Yeah.
The
He just
Chargers
turned
are
Keenan Allen back into his, it's arguably the best season Allen has ever had. He had like
Allen
12.
Allen had two. Allen has good seasons every year. Roll
Yeah.
on, you Bears. 2023, he had a great season until he got hurt. 2022, he had a great season when he came back from injury. He was
Hmm.
like one of the top five wide receivers. Keenan Allen is a dude,
Yeah.
but you, as we saw with Devontae Adams, even with the Jacoby Myers as a great complementary receiver, you need more to your offense than
You
that.
do.
Plus. Um, Keenan is an injury risk and he's old. The
Yes.
Chargers are a shambles. Austin
Hmm.
Eckler is done. UC Davis legend Joshua Kelly is not the answer to anything, but who should the Chargers run when they're when it's third down and they're losing
Right.
without a chance to come back? I love the guy, but the Chargers are a shambles. They
Yeah.
have a huge contract issue coming up with Bosa and Mack because it is going to cost the same amount of money to retain both of them. It's somewhere in the range of $50-55 million.
Right.
They're not going to be able to keep both of them. So whatever Telesco was hoping with 2 years of having those two guys together didn't work. And now they're going to be moving on,
Hmm.
and now he's with us. So what kind of like free agent shenanigan type stuff is he going to pull? Is he going to
Right.
like think that going out and signing a 50-60 million a year veteran is going to be better than watching Tyree Wilson grow, or banking on Malcolm Kuntz to continue his breakout, having the and let's just call it what it is. the fucking defensive player of the year in the NFL,
Mm-hmm.
Max Crosby.
Yeah.
Um,
Zero bias. Should have gotten more votes than Dron Bland. That's all I'm gonna say.
he he should have been a unanimous choice, and I think everybody in the
Yeah.
nation can agree. Is Myles Garrett a great pass rusher that stacks up the counting stats?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Is
He.
Micah Parsons a super fast game
Mm-hmm.
changer as an outside linebacker?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Is TJ Watt a beast that you have to account for?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Arguably the
But
greatest pass rusher ever.
do any of those guys disrupt the game at the same rate as
No.
Max Crosby? 96%
No.
snap share. He's on the field all the time. He is a monster in the run game, and he sacks the quarterback. You saw when he had Kuntz starting to go off, they have to focus on Crosby and other people can eat.
Mm-hmm.
If Kuntz breaks out and is a double digit sack guy, what are they going to do?
Right.
Max is absolutely going to wreck the
Yeah.
NFL. And I don't understand how the rest of the league can't see it. Yes, we watch with a fine we watch games with a fine-toothed comb. That's a fantastic mixed metaphor right there. We watch more closely than anybody else does.
Of course.
But how do they not see it? What are
I
they
don't know.
looking for?
I
All right.
think. Well, I think if I can weigh in on this, the reason he didn't win it and really wasn't even considered. First off, it's awesome that he was even considered as like a top 5 candidate and was invited to the honors. Like that's great. We have a player of that caliber. I think Myles Garrett was given it because he was so great and he's never won it before and blah blah blah. I think TJ arguably played better than him this season, but they didn't want to give it to him. Bosa was not good enough, which is why he wasn't even in consideration. How the fuck did Deron Bland get in there? He let up like 1,000 yards this year and just had some pick sixes. Like, great.
And that kind of speaks to those prestige awards
Yeah.
um, that don't mean anything.
No.
And I I I understand Max Crosby's motivation, and I know that he wants recognition. He wants people to know that who he is,
Yeah.
how hard he works, what he does. But I know that the prestige award kind of thing, that's not his thing. He
No.
wants the Raiders to go
To the
17 and
Super Bowl.
0 and run the table and win a Super Bowl. That's it.
Hmm.
And that's what he wakes up every morning with the intent to do. Um,
Yeah.
he's talked about Hall of Fame before because people have brought it up and said that he's Hall of Famer good
Yeah.
and that's fine. But he is like, that's something that I'm gonna think about in 6, 7, 8 years from now.
Right.
And so those prestige awards, Pro Bowl, the All Pro stuff, the Writers Awards, I don't think he really cares about,
No.
but we do, and it gives us great
Yeah.
podcast content. So
And
fuck
and
the
I'm
Football Writers Association.
and I'm mainly disappointed in it because of how hard he's worked. And I think the reason he didn't win it as well is because the Raiders defense, as good as it was this year, the team itself was not good enough to be in consideration because that really ultimately and unfortunately is what gets taken into consideration a lot is how good your team was. Were you like a nationally recognized good team and were you the best player on it? I think as much as we had highlights of the season and we had a couple of people talking towards the end, there was not enough momentum. Even though Myles Garrett the last like 6 games or whatever did not record a sack,
He disappeared.
he disappeared completely. I think it was a
and
sympathy
and
award
Max had
for
two of Max's best
yeah.
games. One was on Christmas Day against the Kansas City Chiefs,
Hmm.
and the other was in the last game of the season against the Denver Broncos. Like he didn't have a bunch of sacks, but he
Yeah.
was an absolute force disrupting
Yeah.
that game. And
I think counting stats wise, the Packers game was the best. He had like 4 or 5 tackles for loss and like 3 sacks. It was easily his best statistical game, but everyone could see that on a down to down basis, he was the most disruptive player. He was affecting the game so much. He wasn't actually being held and double teamed as much this season, which was cool because of how many other pieces were starting to perform. Our tackles did well. Kuntz broke out. Like there were pieces around him this year, which is the best that he's really ever had, and it's why he had such a great season. And it needs to stay consistent, which is why I'm glad that Graham is here, because I think with momentum of how did he not even get in, and a lot of people trying to like argue about that, he might win it next year if he has another season like this, and the NFL is just like, man, fucking how do we keep like not giving this guy credit? So he might win it next year, he might not. I don't think he gives a shit, and I agree with you on that. I think he wants to hoist the Lombardi before a fucking I did good trophy, right?
Yeah, and now speaking of Captain Max's supporting cast,
Right.
or Captain Max's crew, that's a great segue into talking about the free agency period, which is
Yeah.
coming up, because he does have one of his defensive line mates who is up for free agency, and that's Bilal Nichols,
Ooh.
who I have been a huge fan of. I was very happy when we made that free agent signing, and his contract is up. And
Mm.
should we retain him? I say yes. What say you?
I'm indifferent on it because I don't think he's just like Merrick. I don't think he's put up the stats that you want him to. He obviously had the
We're talking defensive tackle. We're not talking about stats. Defensive tackles don't
okay,
show up in the
fine.
stat sheet. Defensive tackles show up when you're watching the game and the other team can't run. They're
Okay, then in
you,
that case, no.
when a D tackle has to be double teamed so that Max can get off the
Mhm.
edge. That's when D tackles make their bread. And Bilal Nichols is an absolute space eater. He's not Jelly Ellis, but
No, I
but the
love you,
dude,
Jelly.
like,
Miss you.
he plugs gaps, and that's all you can ask for. And he does it well.
And
He's a
I
good player.
completely,
I want him
yeah,
back.
I understand, and I might even change the tune if he's gone, and I might be like, man, we're missing him. But I say no for two reasons. A, it opens up the opportunity to get somebody in free agency that I'm a massive fan of, and two, it opens up the opportunity to get another player in the draft that I'm a huge fan of, and it's just one less roster spot to worry about. But also, if we keep John Jenkins and we get somebody else, I think that's still a great core. I love Bilal. Technically, his name is Belial. I love Belial Nichols to be that space eater, like you said, to be that guy that's just there to, take away opportunities. He's great at that. I would kind of like to see somebody new, or maybe he changes like where he's being played, because he was always kind of a tweener in Chicago. He's been that for us, like a hybrid end tackle, right? He's
Well,
like
when you're looking
6'3",
at run
290.
fits, when
Yeah,
you're looking at run fits, and you've got Bilal and Jenkins out there together, when
yeah,
you're looking at passing downs, maybe spelling Tyree Wilson a little bit, Bilal can do that and play the
yeah.
three tech.
Mhm.
So I think he's a good piece. But Raider Nation, we have ourselves a controversy. I say yes. He says nay. Go ahead and comment in the comment section about who you agree with.
It's I'm 50-50, but I lean no.
And we can do that. So I have a list of some other guys that
Yeah,
we're gonna talk about who are impending free agents.
yeah.
So I'm gonna throw out a name. I'm going to tell you whether I want to keep him or not, and then you
Mhm.
tell me if you agree or disagree. Amir Abdullah, cut him. Well,
Cut him.
hang on,
Cut him.
we can't cut him. He's a free agent. He's not even
Yeah,
contracted with the team. You can't
no,
cut him. Amir Abdullah, don't re-sign him.
no. There's no need. He has been a contributor at times, but he's also not so much so that like other players shouldn't get opportunities because of it. Cut him. Cut Bolden. Cut
No,
not Bolden.
we're talking about Abdullah,
Okay, then
and
just cut Abdullah.
we have a spoiler alert. Backfield situation. We'll get to that in a
Oh, of
second.
course.
Um,
Yeah,
Austin Hooper, don't care.
yeah. Indifferent would be kind of cool to see him back.
All right. Amik Robertson, sign him.
Sign the fuck out of Amik Robertson. Bring him back. Bring back the dog. Bring
I
back the big
love,
dog.
love, love some Amik Robertson. If for no other reason than every time the Raiders win
Yeah.
and at Big Corey does a video, The hype on Amik is real.
Oh, he
Uh,
loved him.
all right, so now we got 3 names that let's go rapid fire with these,
Okay.
because I'm of the same opinion on all 3 of them, and I think you know exactly who they are.
I know the 3 you're talking about.
Van Roten, Illuminor, Andre James. Replace them all! Except, I could see retaining Illuminor, but Andre James, you're out. Van Roten, you're out.
I am of the opposite opinion, where I'm completely fine seeing Illuminor and Van Roten go. I want to keep Andre James. I do. I think unless you're replacing him with like a Jackson Powers Johnson, you're not finding somebody in the draft that's going to be head and shoulders above him, because of how he's ascended this year from being like a below average starter to above average starter this year. I understand he has problems in run blocking scenarios, and I get that. It's probably why Jacobs tailed off a little bit, but he's a great pass pro. He really has good technique, and I understand that there are ways to beat him that are very big flaws, but on the whole, he is a very very good, like very good center.
No,
And
he's
I'm
not.
not gonna.
And he's not a good center.
All right,
He's too small to play center in the NFL.
then move him to
And
guard.
I will. He's
Move him to
centers
guard.
are centers are smaller than guards. If he's too
Move him to
small to
guard.
play center, he's even too
Put him
smaller to
fullback.
play guard.
Put him
The only
fullback.
thing that I have to say about Andre James is if you brought Rodney Hudson, Alex Mack,
Uh,
or the Pouncey brothers out of retirement, they would play better than than Andre James. Um, Moving on.
we can disagree. There's also not a better center in the free agency to pick up. I think just keep him to a 1 or 2 year deal.
Then Rodney Hudson, Alex Mack, or the Pouncey brothers. You're right. There are not. All
I
right.
would love
Comment
Big
Nation.
Rodney
Give us
back.
some comments. What do you think? Should we keep Andre James? Should we keep Illuminor? Should we keep Van Roten? We can talk about it on the next podcast. If I disagree with you, I will shout you down. All right. All right.
My
And
opinion matters more
the
because I'm
well,
louder.
I have the microphone. All right. The last piece of the
Yeah,
free agency puzzle,
I already know. It's a big one.
JJ.
It's a big one. It's a huge one. It's a huge debate.
It's not a debate. Bring him back.
This is why it's a debate, because
It's not a
I
debate.
don't necessarily agree or disagree. I think in order to have the most success right now, you bring him back. In order to have the most successful offense, you can bring him back. My only concern is that we don't know what version we're getting. We know that he's good. We know if we bolster the offensive line, he's gonna play better. My concern is that he's he's coming off the injury, off of a bad season.
He's injured every year.
Of course he's injured, but
It's
this was the first time, and he's getting to that age where it's now going to start, like, injuries pile up, injuries really get to him. He's
sure.
about to hit
And he
27.
knows that. And
Of
I'm not
course.
saying sign Josh Jacobs as our bell cow back and give him, 25 carries a game. But if you have Jacobs, who has a certain skill set, and Zamir White, who has a different skill set, you can do a lot of things with the offensive line that will keep the defense on their toes. Both of them can work in a split type backfield, kind of the same way that
Yeah.
the Falcons worked in 2022
Mhm.
with Algier and Cordero Patterson, or
Yeah.
the way that the Falcons. We need Arthur Smith as our offensive coordinator. Let's get Arthur Smith in the building.
Just run it with Jacobs and Zamir every single play. Devontae can go. Just bring in blocking receivers. Fuck it.
The
Just
thing about
run.
Jacobs is that separates him from
Yeah.
Zamir White is his pass catching ability.
Yes.
However, we saw Zamir excel in the passing game in his
And
four game audition. So
so go ahead. Go ahead.
the best thing to do with Jacobs, knowing his ability ceiling, is to make sure that he's getting 12 to 15 touches a game and give 12 to 15 touches a game to Zamir White. You don't have to have
Yeah.
Josh Jacobs be the absolute workhorse, and we can extend his career for another couple years.
Yes.
He understands. He got to see firsthand what Zamir did, as we all did. Zamir knows he's
He's
coming.
capable.
He
He's
knows what
capable.
he can put out there,
Yeah.
and the coaching staff does too. You're not paying either of them very much money.
No.
Zamir's still on his rookie contract for 3 more years. You're gonna maybe extend him, maybe don't,
Yeah.
or at year 5, give him his 5th year. Jacobs
Doesn't have a 5th year.
understands from his free agency dalliance last year what the
Mhm.
market is going to bear for him,
Yes.
especially a year later, and especially coming off an injury.
Mhm.
He just wants to stay in town. He's not going after like some, big market setting contract. He knows
Right.
that. He knows that. So you can have a cheap backfield of 2 guys that are Pro Bowl caliber.
Mhm.
Keep Josh.
And I think for the right deal, it's going to be important. My only thing about it is that if there is, I mean, any shot of getting something back for him before I think you'd kind of have to put him on like a sign and trade, but like do it for a 1 year deal or something like that. Like you're not
Nobody's going to trade for Josh Jacobs.
okay. So then at the very least, you're either getting back a Pro Bowl level receiver or you're just getting rid of him. I'm not of necessarily the mindset to just completely get rid of him. I'd like something back for him. That's not going to happen. The only thing that I can think of right now is in the next few years, we're going to have some really, really strong running back classes, and we have for the past couple of years, and that trend is going to continue. Jaden Ott from Cal, going to be a first or second round pick. I can almost guarantee you.
Second
Uh,
rounder.
what is it, early to mid second rounder or something like that? Like he'll be in that Brees
Most
Hall range.
most running backs are going to be second rounders, like
Yeah,
from here on out. There aren't going to be a lot of Bijans and Jameers coming out.
right.
Next year, we're going to have Travion Henderson, Omarion
Hmm.
Hampton. Jaden Ott will be eligible. Who knows if he'll actually? I mean, he could probably make more NIL money. It's a different era, especially in college
Yes.
football with the NIL, because it's no longer running backs are no longer incentivized to come out with the prospect package of
Right.
early declare, early
Hmm.
breakout, all that stuff. They don't have to do it because they can make more money staying in school and still have a ripping good time
Right.
running the rock for the Golden Bears as they surprise everybody and win the ACC. So yeah, the running back landscape is totally different,
Yes.
but there's no reason not to sign Josh at least to a
No.
1 or 2 year deal. Bring him back.
Yeah.
Go with him and Zamir. If you need like a sub for third down passing packages
Yes.
that Abdullah did, go find one in the draft. There's going to be a couple. I mean,
And
convert
I'm
a short,
totally.
thick wide receiver.
Yeah, and I'm actually completely with you on bringing him back. I just want to think about the future for a second. I think they still should draft a running back at some point this year. It doesn't matter if it's third, fourth, fifth round. I think you find the Ravens before the championship game had a successful time until Dobbins got hurt of having that kind of 3 backfield. Dobbins was the Lightning, Edwards was the Thunder, and then Mitchell was that third guy that nobody expected to really do much this year. I did, by the way, and he was that like third piece that they really needed. If you're 3 deep at running back, I think that's an incredible thing. I definitely think that they should find their third piece. I'm also very willing to have Jacobs back. I want his Raiders legacy to be cemented. I think he's already like second in yards for running backs in our organization, something like that. He's like just behind Marcus Allen. Like even if you look at it from an all-time running backs perspective, he is in that list of Hall of Fame guys for most yards before 25. He's like fifth
Yeah,
among that.
he might get there, and I agree with you on
Yes.
the 3 back situation, as
Yeah.
long as that one's not 30. Okay,
Of
so
course.
Um, and you we're talking about the future and everything, but
Yeah.
as Uguay said, if you have 1 foot in the future and 1 foot in the past, you're pissing on the present. I think he said that. Anyway, let's continue to piss on the present and talk about the future and
Yes.
some of our pre-draft targets. So, with our free agency list,
Hmm.
we're really only my list. I'm really only losing 3 offensive linemen. So we've still got Parham, we've still got Colton, but we do need to shore it up because regardless of whether O'Connell goes out and wins the job, I love Antonio Pierce, but
Yeah.
you know, let's be real. Let's tell the players the honest truth so that you can do the same in the press. Aiden, we love you, and if we have to go back to you as a sub, we're
You're
very
not
confident that
you're
you
not the
can like
starter.
put us on the winning track. But we're going to go get a quarterback,
Yeah.
just so you know.
And
And we might tell you you're competing, but you're not really competing.
are
They're going
you
to be the
Jaden
starter
Daniels though?
because they're either going to have higher draft capital than you, or
Yeah.
they're going to be paid more than you,
Mhm.
and they're likely going to be more mobile. They're going to be more mobile. There's no likely about it. They're going to be more mobile than you. There's
Yeah.
only 2 quarterbacks that I compare O'Connell to, and that's Derek Carr and Jared Goff, and both of them are 3 times as mobile as Aiden O'Connell is. Um,
I was
and
thinking Matt Ryan, but
so I love Aiden O'Connell, and I know that
Mhm.
given the right situation, and I've talked to you about this before. I've talked to
Mhm.
many people about this before. With my specific vision and team build, I could make Aiden O'Connell a successful quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah.
But that's not the way that the NFL is structured anymore. I'm an
No.
old, so that's not going to be the way that it happens. We're
Mhm.
going to go get a Fields. We're going to go get a Mayfield. We're going to go get some kind of veteran free agent, or we're going to do something in the draft. So my number one target,
Yes.
and I'm pretty sure it's your number one target too, is LSU do it all quarterback Jaden Daniels. Package that 13th pick, package our second rounder. Do whatever you can. You're gonna have to go and make a trade with the Patriots or
Yes.
something, but whatever it takes, Jaden Daniels can transform the Raiders organization.
I think first and foremost, you probably have to trade into the top 3 because Arizona have what, the 4th? They are
Oh,
not willing to trade back that far because they want a receiver. I don't think they're replacing Kyler. I don't think they should. So that's already a target gone. I was thinking that potentially there's an opportunity for one of those 3 quarterbacks, probably not Caleb, but one of those, let's say 2, to fall to pick 4. But I think you have to trade into the top 3 because Arizona are not going to trade down that far. And beyond them, I don't think anyone's willing to trade their pick. They're going to take Daniels at 5 at the worst.
the Bears might.
Which
The Patriots shouldn't,
no,
and I don't. Yeah, so it's not
yes,
realistic. That's not what
no.
we're doing here.
Okay.
All right. So
Well,
when we
you didn't.
start to,
Can I finish? Can I finish the point I was going to make?
yes,
Thank you, Mister Talkie over, and my point's more important. I'd be. You have to trade into that top 3 to
I
get
want to see
Daniels, and I
comments
love
light up right now.
it. Can you tell I'm his kid? I love Daniels. I love Daniels, the player, the character. Obviously, he's got ties with the staff. We have like 2 or 3 staff members that have. I'm pretty sure were named in his Heisman speech. All of the pieces are being set up for a big trade to happen. And when you look at Telesco, my guy likes trading up. He's aggressive when it comes to guys that he likes. If he's into Daniels, he will get Daniels. He will. And I love that. And that's I was going to get into it. There's like a 3 there's a I'll call it a trident scenario for what could happen in this draft. Maybe you want to get into it a little later. I promise it won't take that long if you just
Why are
let
we
me talk.
yelling? I like lamp.
What are we yelling about?
What's your trident? Give me your trident.
Okay, so maybe this will take a little longer. Anyway, I love my brain. I love my brain. All right, first prong of the trident is probably the least possible, but it's the most fun. You trade up, you get Daniels.
Okay, second.
Second prong of the trident, you trade down, you get still a great consolation prize in a guy like Amarius Mims or one of still the top corners in the draft. That's great. You also get some future picks, you get some like extra players to bring in a lot of talent. The final prong, which is maybe my favorite, if you look at the if you look at the history of the 13th overall pick, the last 10 years, you see some elite names. Last year was Lucas Van Ness. He had a great rookie season. We'll see if he continues to
He's
progress.
got a
But
street named after him in San Francisco, I believe.
yeah, that's
Van
fucking
Ness.
awesome. Um, but you see like Micah Parsons, Aaron Donald, all these guys that are like elite players. 13th pick is usually pretty fucking lucky when it comes to drafting defensive players. I think Tristan Wirfs as well was like the 13th overall pick. You're in that range of getting Nate Wiggins and Johnny Newton, who I am absolutely in love with. Like I've loved Newton and I've talked to you about him, talked to Raider Damas about him. I've loved this guy for really since before the season started, and when I heard about like mock drafts in general, having him on there, like you're in that range. You take him, and he will be like an all-pro defensive tackle that can rush the passer, that will help Max, that will be his best friend until we win a Super Bowl
Okay,
and
so is
beyond.
that your one target?
What? Johnny Newton? I mean,
The whole preamble to this was a target.
yeah, I
Right.
love Johnny Newton, but there's so
I'm
many opportunities that it's going to
you
be a
said
fun
so many
draft.
names, I'm confused that
This is my problem is that I fall in love with players so easily, but
I mean, okay. So
yeah,
your first prong, Daniels. So
yes,
we're simpatico on that. All
we're in
right.
agreement. I want to know what you think about Amarius Mims or some of these other tackles though, because that's obviously needing a
I
tackle.
need to do more homework
Okay,
is my answer to that.
okay,
I'm
you'll love
focused
this.
right now on the quarterback position.
Yes,
And
it's the biggest
I
need.
I will like throw things out I will break shit for a long time if we draft Spencer Rattler. Um
Oh, I
I'm
don't mind that, but it's
I'm
gonna
not a
suck.
huge fan of Bo Nix. Um uh I if it came down to Nix or Penix, I would much rather have Penix. Just
We're
because I
gonna
want a Raiders jersey with his name misspelled on the back. Um so if we're gonna go later for a quarterback,
right.
I'd rather go that way. But I do rather enjoy the idea of using that 13th pick with something else, shore up the offensive line,
Yes,
get another cornerback like a
right.
Kool-Aid McKinstry, that kind of thing, and then taking
I
a
mean, I
quarterback
like the
later.
other.
There's JJ McCarthy, there's Michael Penix
Yes,
Jr., there's Bo Nix. That there are a few guys that are out there.
yeah.
All right.
Well. So I am of the mindset that I would love a corner, but in terms of quarterbacks, the only quarterbacks that I want are Daniels, Nix, or McCarthy. I in terms of like first round wherever they're going, those are the only guys that I would like.
I
I
would
think
take May.
well, I mean, yes, but if we're being like truly realistic, it'll be 1 and 2 is Caleb and May. After that, it's kind of up for debate. I know some people have been saying May might fall, but I don't believe that shit. I think the Patriots are going to go with Drake May, the most obvious choice. He'd be QB1 in any other draft class, but this one, like he's a clear QB2 and arguably the best like all around passer. I only like Daniels, Nix, and McCarthy, and
All
really
right.
only McCarthy if we trade down. Too many red flags for Penix. I don't like him.
Okay. Raider Nation, thank you so much for tuning in. Be on the lookout, hit the subscribe
Yeah.
button, and hit the bell so that you get notified
Mhm.
for the next podcast. I do want to tease something right here. I have a Raiders roundtable that's going to be a weekly thing. I do have a couple of names that are already on board.
Mhm.
One of them was mentioned in this podcast already. So was the other one. So it'll be a great show every week coming at you. 4 guys at least talking about Raider football. Special guests too. This thing is going to go huge, and I'm here for it. Obviously, I'm here for it. I'm the one who's doing it. Thank you again for tuning in. I want to thank everybody again at the Undroppables, and I'm going to have to come up with a new closer, because on on my other podcasts that are fantasy related, I say I hope you win. Maybe I'll just say I hope we win, but that doesn't sound great. So all right, and okay, I got it.
You got this.
All right,
Just take a second, compose.
Raider Nation, thank you for tuning in. I will see you next time, and as every week, fuck the Broncos.